Hey everyone, this is me, Jason Gregory, coming at you from the UK on a sunny day in March. I hope you guys are all practicing your social distancing. Obviously, everybody's in lockdown, so people who are working from home who have the ability to work from home. Some people obviously have been kind of shelved while their companies are figuring out what's going on. But guys, what I really want you guys to understand is we're really going to get through this time and we're going to get through it stronger. See, no challenge is insurmountable, it's only a challenge. But it's important that we do the right things. It's important that we empower ourselves in the right way. And so one of the things I want to share with you today is an interview that was done by Dr. Galvez, who's one of the chief scientists within the company that I'm with. And he's just really explaining the reality of what's happening with the virus, the spread of the virus, what we can do practically to really protect ourselves and our families, and the power of what we offer from a nutritional point of view can be in terms of giving your body all what it needs so your body can fight back through its own physiology. And so even there's a lot of misinformation out there, so I thought it's really, really important to share this with you. So we watch this interview with Dr. Galvez and Tina Van Horn, who's also head of research, and then you come up with your own conclusions in terms of what you should be doing. But we, for the last 30 years, have been empowering people in two areas. And funnily enough, it's the two areas that the government are saying now that people should be focusing on, and that is working from home and empowering your body's immune system to be as strong as possible. And so guys, I want you to watch this interview with Dr. Galvez and Tina, and then guys, go and make the right choices so you can protect yourselves and your families. So take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
And I'm so excited to have live here and this interview with me is Dr. Alfredo Galvez, our lead scientist of research and development. You know, I know nothing in life seems normal right now. There's a lot of chaos and confusion in this whole global epidemic that we're trying to just navigate the waters of, and it's just safe to say that nothing in the next few weeks is going to be normal. It's going to require all of us to get a little creative with how we manage our time, with how we get in our workouts, with the things that we do to keep our bodies healthy so that we're less susceptible to some of those things going on out there. And, you know, that's what's so exciting about Relive Nutrition and about nutrition in general is that it is one of the best tools that you have that's going to empower you to take charge of your health during these scary times. And so we know that getting great nutrition is so important to supporting our immunity. And there are specific dietary ingredients that can boost that immunity even more. And Dr. Galvez is here with us today. He's going to share some of that. But let me just assure you that Relive is here. We want to be the voice of rationale and reason and reassurance during all of this chaos and confusion. So I know there's so much information, so much misinformation out there that it's hard to filter through everything that you need to know. So, you know, we just want common sense to prevail. We want you to listen to those authorities, those media sources who are trustworthy and follow their guidance. But in the meantime, we also wanted to empower you with a few tools and some information of things that you can do right there in your home, right there with your own nutrition. You know, Relive is a wellness company, and we care about our family near and far. And so I can't think of a more important time to focus on supporting our immunity. And that's why we've asked our lead scientist of research and discovery to join us today. And I'm going to bring in Dr. Galvez and just say, let's see, where's he going to go? I can hide this one, operating the broadcast here. There we go. There we go. Hey, Dr. Galvez, how are you today?
Oh, I'm pretty good. A lot of things going on right now. I'm quite busy this morning. So, yeah, fortunately, I had some time to have this Facebook Live interview because I think it's very important for everybody. Some of the information that we have is something that I think the public should know and should be aware of.
Absolutely. I know you just shared some statistics with me that we're going to throw up on the screen here in just a few minutes. But let's just get started. When we hear so much about the current situation, about the current coronavirus, there's a very important word associated with the description, and that word is novel. Why don't you explain to us what novel means from the scientific and medical perspective?
So novel just means it's a new virus that our human body has not seen yet. So because it's new, we don't have the antibodies or the immune response to get rid of it, which is again is a big problem, because if it's something new, then our body still has to find a way to be able to counteract and reduce our infection, as well as fight against this infection. So and so there's this new what you call this there's this new term that well, it's not a new term, but the fact that this new virus is now a pandemic. That means it's already all over the world, and it has infected a lot of people, and that's why it's causing a lot of concern, because if we don't get a hold of this, and it's going to cause some catastrophic what you call this, infection rates, as well as mortality rates. And I just sent you a data that just came out this morning on the number of coronavirus cases now in the U.S. And as you can see in that graph I showed you, from last week there's only 1,000 cases. But today, after 1 week, the number of cases jumped up to 5,000. So we are now what we call the exponential phase. And that's very critical for us, because for the country, because if you have high numbers of infection rates, that means that at least around 10 to 20% of the people might need some help, as far as going to the hospitals and asking for help, because 80% of us can actually fight against this virus based on the data that's already been provided. But a lot of people are not don't have good immune system to fight back, and as a result, they need healthcare and hospitalization. So if 10 to 20% of the people that get infected go to the hospitals, it can overwhelm our healthcare system. So the only way we can reduce that is to do the social distancing that healthcare professionals have been suggesting, because we don't want to have that exponential curve. So that's why we call it flatten the curve, so that our healthcare system are not going to be overwhelmed. Of course, if you reduce the infection rates, you also reduce the mortality rates, because from the data that's been generated so far on this new coronavirus, 2% of the infected population actually die. So the mortality rate of 2% is quite. A lot of people think it's low, but if you look at it in terms of the number of people that might get infected, you could be talking about thousands to even hundreds of thousands of deaths if it's not controlled. So there's a reason why we need to control this.
So
anyway,
I just saw
yeah.
just on a recent, I was on Facebook, and there's a new hashtag that is hashtag flatten the curve. So
Flatten the curve. That's right.
I
That's
think
right. Yeah.
people are starting to pick up on the terminology and understand the significance
Yes.
of the social distancing, and
Yeah.
that being so important, because this is a novel. This strain is a novel virus. But so what I want to hear before we talk specifically about dietary nutrients is, you have a very unique perspective as a researcher on the current situation. What are some of the challenges that researchers are facing as they, that are getting in the way of finding or inhibiting their efforts to find effective therapies or developing a vaccine?
Yes, that's actually a good question, because it turns out that was a question that was posed to me when I was a PhD graduate student. I was taking my oral exams, because that was at the height of the HIV infection. And like the HIV, this new coronavirus is a retrovirus. It's an RNA virus. And it's difficult to find a cure or even find a vaccine, because since RNA is the genetic material, RNA is different from DNA. RNA is single-stranded. There's only one strand of genetic material, while DNA is two-stranded. So the RNA viruses actually mutate a lot faster, because any changes you cannot repair it unless, unlike the DNA, which is double-stranded. If one strand gets mutated, the other strand, they have processes where you can repair it using the normal strands. So the mutation rates for DNA viruses are a lot lower than RNA viruses. So there's a chance of getting new strains of this virus. In fact, they've already seen this with this new coronavirus. And that's one of the reasons why we also have to reduce the infection rates, because the more infections, that means there's a lot more opportunities for the virus to replicate the DNA, the RNA. So every time that happens, you could introduce mutations that might impact its ability to infect, increase infection rate, as well as maybe make it more virulent. So we want to reduce that. So lowering the infection rates can also reduce the ability of the virus to mutate. And as a result, also, if that's the case, then it's also going to be very difficult to find vaccines, because even if you find a vaccine for a particular strain, if it is mutated to something that's different, then that vaccine is not going to work anymore. And as you know, developing vaccines is not something that you can do overnight. There's a lot of testing that needs to be done, because you're introducing it to healthy individuals. And as a result, you have to prove that it's safe first before you can test it in humans. So, and also, of course, you still have to test it in humans. But before you test it in humans, you have to test it in monkeys and make sure that it's effective. So there are a lot of stages of testing that needs to be done. So when I said something about vaccine, developing vaccine for this, it will take anywhere between a year and a year and a half. And of course, you also have to take into consideration the mutation rates of this virus. So it's a serious problem, but it's not something that we haven't seen before. I think we can do things that can control this. And so all these suggestions that epidemiologists and virologists have been being given to the public, we should accept it and practice it, because that's the only way we can fight back against this virus.
So it's obviously what we're hearing is, it's going to take a significant amount of time to get to the point where we have an effective vaccine. So
That's
in
right,
the meantime, there are those things that each of us individually can be doing to protect ourselves to the best of our abilities. And certainly we understand that nutrition and dietary ingredients are one of those things that we have within our control. And it's something Reliv's been doing for 30 years as far as supporting immunity. So this is not a new topic amongst within Reliv, and certainly not a new benefit to our products. But can you talk about the effect of nutrition on immunity, and what role does epigenetics play in the immune function? Because we know you're one of the pioneers in epigenetics. So how is that giving us a little bit of an advantage as far as supporting our immune system when we understand what are the benefits of epigenetics in this situation?
Yeah, fortunately, our body has already evolved processes to help us fight against infections like this. And there are already food and nutrients that have co-evolved with the human body, so that once you put it inside our body, it actually helps with the, interacts with the immune system to help fight against infections and bacterial infections, as well as some of these environmental stresses we're exposed to. And the role of epigenetics is really the key science now that's has been proven to be one of the, the underlying causes of a lot of the, not just for infections, but for chronic disease formation. And that's the reason why you need to have nutrients available to our body to use to counteract all these, insults to our body. Now, with regards to the viral infection, in fact, there was a paper, there was a presentation that I attended almost 2.5 years ago in Seattle, where this professor showed why the viruses are able to evade the immune defenses in our body. Because as I said, the immune defenses in our body is already there, and it is being supplemented by the availability of nutrients from the food that we eat. So the viruses are able to evade the immune defenses by actually taking advantage of the epigenome. When I say epigenome, it's actually the packaging of the DNA, because it affects which genes are turned on and off. So our body is designed to turn on genes that will help prevent infection, right? By modifying the histone tails, or the epigenome. Now, what the viruses do is that after they infect us, the coat protein that attaches to the cell membrane breaks down and puts out small proteins that mimics the histone tails, or mimics the epigenome, essentially an essential part of the gene expression system in our body. It mimics that, so that instead of those epigenetic factors that turn on the genes that will prevent infection, instead of going to the right location, the histone mimics will hijack it, so that it won't turn on the genes that will prevent the infection. As a result, the viruses are able to overcome the immune defenses of our body. So there's a big, that was actually one of the, there was a buzz in the conference that came out, because that's something new that a lot of doctors and the medical establishment are actually not aware of. And so that's another avenue for us to take advantage, or at least find effective treatments to help our body with its defenses against infection. And when I heard that, then I thought about what the role of lunasin somehow can impact on that, because we know that lunasin can bind to those histone tails. So if it binds to those histone tails, it can also bind to those histone mimics. So if lunasin can bind to those histone mimics, then it will prevent the sequestering of the epigenetic factors that the human genome needs to turn on the genes associated with our immune response. So those are things that I think we can test as we will move forward with the research on lunasin. And of course, the expression of the immune response also involves epigenetic changes, and that's actually been shown as well by other researchers. And 10 to 12 years ago, there's actually studies done in Purdue and Indiana University where lunasin has been shown to turn on, the genes associated with the immune response, both for innate, which is our first defense against infection, as well as adaptive immunity, which is the ability of the body to produce antibodies that can target those viral infection, the virus itself. In fact, if you look at vaccines, viral vaccines are actually what we call antigens that teaches our body to produce the antibodies that will attack those viruses. So in a way, there's something inside our body that will already teach us how to produce the antibodies against those viruses. And lunasin has been shown in both cases to actually be helpful in expressing the genes that's associated both for the innate, which is the first defense against the infection, as well as adaptive immunity, where we produce the antibodies that will ultimately kill those viruses and prevent infection and help our body heal as we get infected by this virus.
Well, I mean, what I find really interesting is, I mean, we've come to understand lunasin's benefits as far as our long-term health, in supporting, the inflammatory response, and in supporting reducing some of those symptoms or associated with long-term and chronic conditions that may have an immune function core root to them. But so it's interesting to hear you talk about how lunasin and these other dietary ingredients, which we're going to discuss briefly, that are found in combination with lunasin in Reliv's products, but that lunasin also functions, more almost, I don't want to call it superficial, but that's the best word I can think of right now, to help us with our short-term immunity and fighting off those viruses and pathogens that are environmentally attacking us, and in addition to the long-term health benefits.
Yeah. So part of the problem when we age, obviously, and as we get exposed to all these different environmental stresses, we start to modify or dysregulate the epigenome. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we're more susceptible to diseases as we age. In fact, we're more susceptible to viral infection as we age. And one of the epigenetic changes affects our immune system. And there's synergistic effects, obviously, with the metabolism of our body, metabolism. And so what we want is to have a combination of all ingredients that affect our body, essentially providing all the nutrients the body needs to function properly. So that we don't dysregulate our epigenome, so we don't age quickly. In fact, there's also what they call epigenetic age, which is associated with dysregulated epigenome. So we want to reduce that as well, so that we have all the necessary tools or the necessary things that we have to fight back against infections as well as chronic disease development. So the availability of all these nutrients, vitamins and minerals. I want to, because a lot of people have been asking about vitamin C and vitamin D, which are actually very important vitamins. The reason why we have those vitamins because it helps with all of these processes in our body as well. So we need to get a synergistic combination of all these macronutrients like proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and of course the micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals. We need to have those in combination, obviously, with lunasin, because lunasin can act synergistically with all these ingredients to optimize expression of genes to promote health. And that's why when I started working with Dr. Carl on adding lunasin into the core nutrition, that's one of the main objectives that we have. And in fact, when we did some experiments in the combination of lunasin and the now, we've shown that it actually improves metabolic health, which is also very important because metabolic health is associated with improved immune system as well. So there's a lot of things that are going on as far as the nutritional composition of the core nutrition in combination with lunasin, and that's how we want to promote the Relay product. Is that we don't just take one; we have to take not just the core nutrition, but also the other products that help our body, especially like, for example, Artifact, and also with the Glucafact associated with diabetes, because those are all interrelated. If you have diabetes, your immunity is also compromised. In fact, you become more susceptible to infection because of that. So we need to affect all parts of our health, because ultimately that's how we are able to fight back against this infection.
And you just stated it perfectly, as far as that's what makes Relive products really unique is that we don't just take a single ingredient. And so many people, when we talk about immunity, they instantly think of vitamin C and taking mega doses of vitamin C or zinc. But those mega doses are not nearly as effective as putting these ingredients together in those synergistic formulas, starting with our core nutrition formulas that have that broad base of micronutrients to cover all those nutrient gaps, plus the protein, as you mentioned. Getting those macronutrients balanced for proper energy is important to supporting our immune system. But then, when we talk about our targeted solutions, they have those specialized, really higher optimal antioxidants like resveratrol and CoQ10 and the optimal levels of vitamin D. So, we have those products available that we've been doing for 30 years, more than 30 years, to give folks those optimal levels of micronutrients, phytonutrients, lunasin, protein, getting it all, in that synergistic formula. And so we know, just reemphasizing the importance of that synergism, I think was super important to hear from you. But and you already talked, lunasin is a very unique ingredient, and it boosts many of the benefits of our core nutrition products. So can you, I'm going to ask you again, to just kind of summarize just briefly what lunasin does to enhance the immune response and as well as our inflammatory response?
Well, the studies that have been done showing the effect of lunasin on our immune response, as I said, has something to do with turning on the genes associated with the first line of defense, what we call innate immunity, the natural killer cells that target those virus-infected cells. The gene that's critical for that is this interferon gamma, which is actually upregulated by lunasin. That means it increases expression of it in natural killer cells to allow it to kill those virus-infected cells. And it also has an effect on the development, the production of antibodies, especially for something that's novel. So your body has not seen it yet. So you have to find, that's the reason why you get sick first and then you get better later on, because you get sick because your body's still trying to find the right combination of immunoglobulins that will target those viral viruses and prevent viral infection. That's why you get sick first. And then eventually, once it develops the antibodies, then you start getting better. So there's a time frame, there's a gap for that. And lunasin has been shown to actually be helpful in producing those antibodies to target those viruses. So those are studies that have already been done. In fact, I got a proposal, 10 to 11 years ago about using lunasin for cancer immunotherapy, but I at that time we're still developing the product, so I didn't go through with that. But there are already studies showing that, and it has something to do with the fact that lunasin affects gene expression by modifying, again, those histone tails, the part of the epigenome, and that actually, to me, is the key aspect of what lunasin and even bioactive agents from all the other nutrients, because the epigenome or epigenetics only became the studies on epigenetics only became exponential really after 2010. So it's a relatively new science, but I've been working on this since 1996 when nobody else is working with epigenetics. We're not talking about lunasin can affect gene expression to affect chronic disease formation. And so what I have done for the past, 35 years, 30 or so more years, is that I've already seen, at least figured out, having a working knowledge on how epigenetics can affect chronic disease development. And I'm using lunasin as a model for that. But as I see now with all this research, bioactive agents coming from food and dietary nutrients actually have similar effects. And that includes fiber. I know a lot of soluble fibers, when it gets digested in the gut, actually releases chemicals that also affect the epigenome. And all these things are coming out now. And so what we have with Relive is we're not just looking at lunasin, we're actually looking at lunasin in combination with all these ingredients that we have in our core nutrition and even in some of our directed nutrition, like the one we have with FiberStore and again, all the one with CoQ10 and resveratrol. Resveratrol also has an effect on the epigenome as well. But the science is not mature enough to the point that the medical establishment really has a handle of how to use it and explain why it has all these multiple effects. Because again, epigenetics is different from just genetics and biochemistry. The effect is different. It will have different effects because we have different cell types in our body. And the effect of lunasin in each cell type is different from each other. It's not something that we learned when we were learning about genetics and biochemistry. It's more of a reductionist approach where, this gene gets turned on and it will have this effect. But here it's a more of like a general approach, generalized response, which a lot of doctors and a lot of geneticists still has a difficult time to understand, and it's not as receptive yet. But I think this next generation of scientists will be, I'm hoping that they can now look into this and expand on what we have found so far, and change the way we look at things, because really that's the only way we can find effective treatments now, is to make sure that we take we look and understand what the epigenome is and what the effect of the natural bioactive agents on the epigenome as it turns on and off some of these genes in our bodies. And in some cases, like for example, lunasin, there's already, it has a targeted response to infections, because it knows which genes to turn on and which genes to turn off. And we have the advantage of having lunasin present in our diet for thousands of years already, because it's a fundamental part of seed development. So it's already been there. Our body knows what to do with it. And as we know with producing antibodies, there's what we call epigenetic memory. That's the reason why vaccines work, viral vaccines work, because we're teaching our body to fight against a virus by injecting antigens to recognize those viruses. And the same thing with bioactive agents that we already been taking that affects the epigenome. There's somehow what we call an epigenetic memory that allows it to target those genes that are helping us cope with chronic diseases, as well as viral and bacterial infections. So there's a lot of things that still needs to be understood. And I think there's also a learning curve for the medical establishment as far as epigenetics is concerned. And the advantage I have, obviously, is that I started working on this when nobody else was working on it. So at least with lunasin as an example, I can actually provide some clear understanding of how it does things.
So I think, knowing what you know about lunasin and what you know about epigenetics, those of us who have benefited from the Relive nutrition certainly have an advantage when it comes to our immune function during this time over those who aren't getting those dietary nutrients that we have access to in the core nutrition and targeted solution formulas. What are a couple of the other? I mean, we talked about vitamin C, vitamin D a little bit, resveratrol, CoQ10. Are there any other ingredients that are up and coming as far as immune support or epigenetic support that we're optimizing already in the Relive products that the research is beginning to show some validation for?
Yeah, I was talking about fiber, because fiber, when it gets digested in the gut, releases chemicals that affect the epigenome. I've actually worked with one, I think it was butyrate, was one. I was working with that when I was in Berkeley, and it's a known histone deacetylase inhibitor that inhibits a specific enzyme associated with the epigenome. And because, again, we have to look at it in terms of unlike drugs that is something new the body has not seen before. Fiber is something. Digestion of fiber is something that's already been there forever. And so when you develop those, produce those ingredients affecting the epigenome, it has co-evolved. So there's a targeting mechanism, and we still have to understand that. And that's one of the things that really, I think, rankles me, because a lot of times when I talk about natural bioactive agents from dietary sources, people think of it as a snake oil because of all these multiple effects on health. And it really, and I can see why, because it's really not based on our studies. It shouldn't do that, because we're so focused on just this reductionist approach and effects on genes. But again, you have to look at it in terms of the overall effect, and the epigenetic mechanisms actually provide a mechanism to explain why dietary ingredients have all these multiple health benefits. And a lot of times people don't realize that. And I think there's, again, a learning curve. The people should be educated on this. And as we get more information from epigenetics research, they should be hashed out and will provide us more evidence as to the effect of our dietary ingredients on our health. And in fact, with Lunasin, specifically with Lunasin right now, 13 years ago, I showed that Lunasin affects this specific epigenetic biomarker. In fact, very specific. I know that Lunasin inhibits this lysine, H3 lysine 14 acetylation, and I actually filed that as a patent, so I only have my name in there. There's no university, no government assistance on that patent. But last year, middle of last year, like 52 scientists from 3 different institutions actually showed that that specific epigenetic biomarker is associated with chronic inflammation in cancer development, and also with atherosclerosis or heart disease development. And I didn't, these are independent validations showing that Lunasin's effect on this epigenetic biomarker has been shown to be critical as well in preventing all this chronic disease development. So I didn't, again, it's coming up, the research is there, the validation is being done independently, and so we now have all this evidence that we have, but it just needs to be communicated more, and I guess do the clinical trials on this. But again, even that is a big hurdle, because it takes hundreds of millions of dollars for clinical trials. And if you're talking about a bioactive agent like this that is available everywhere, I don't think anybody would invest that kind of amount of money just to get a claim. So that's the hurdle that we have with bioactive agents, and that's actually a barrier that the drug companies and the FDA and NIH has put in, so that we can't put claims into natural bioactive agents, despite the fact that we know it will have an effect. Because we can't do those clinical trials, we don't have the money to do that, and even if we do have the money, we can't really market it because it's already there. So
but what we do have is yeah. So, but what we do have is, we have your knowledge, we have your expertise, but we also have the process, the patented process for extracting Lunasin and making sure it is in the most bioavailable form when we put it into those products, which is something that, even though Lunasin is available in as a dietary nutrient in all of these other foods, you have developed this process to optimize it so that when we ingest it, it's still bioavailable and we're getting those benefits. So certainly, and the other thing I loved hearing you talk about was fiber, because our Fiber Store product, I've said forever, it's way more than a fiber supplement. And aside from the digestive health benefits of fiber, which we're all going to be locked in at home, we probably need to be making sure we're getting plenty of fiber, and our diets are going to be disrupted during this quarantine time. And but getting those antioxidants that come with the fiber in our Fiber Store product, I absolutely love that product for the immune support benefits that brings. But and the other thing I have to say, I'm going to step up on my little box here for just a second, but as a professional in the fitness industry, I just really want to encourage everybody to take a look at those other epigenetic factors that we have an influence over, as far as exercise and continuing to get exercise and move, whatever that looks like, because that stimulates your immune system as well. And then those dietary choices that you're making, it's going to be a little harder to stay on our normal eating routines, but do the best you can to still continue to get those fruits and vegetables, those colorful foods that are loaded with phytonutrients, whether those have to come from the freezer section or a can. Just really focus on making those better choices that we promote in the Fit 3 program, and that we've given you some free resources to, just to help you make those better choices. But what are a few other recommendations that you have, Dr. Galvez, for our audience, and what are you personally doing to protect yourself and your family?
Before I answer that, I just want to touch on the different Lunasin that's already out in the market, because a lot of times I actually get questions about that, and I have to emphasize here that not all Lunasin out there are the same, okay? Because there's a reason why peptide therapy, because Lunasin is a peptide, it's a small protein. It doesn't work especially for drug companies, they don't even want to touch it. Like insulin is essentially a small, it's a peptide, it's a small protein, but you have to inject it because if you ingest it, it gets inactivated. And the same thing with lunasin. We were working with pure lunasin at one point, we actually have it synthesized, but it's actually not gonna be good for you because it becomes inactivated when you eat it. And that's the reason why we have to develop a way to package it and protect it from being digested. But in order for us to do that, we actually developed a bioassay. I remember I told you about 13 years ago, I came up with this idea or this discovery that lunasin can inhibit this H3 lysine 14 acetylation, which is the epigenetic biomarker now that's associated with cancer formation, chronic inflammation, as well as heart disease. I developed a bioassay just to make sure that our products, when we develop it, when we manufacture it, in fact, we even built our own manufacturing facility because we can't just buy soy from other sources because all of those soy, the lunasin present there gets inactivated when we eat it. So we have to come up with our own process of producing lunasin from soy. And the reason is because we have developed this assay. We know that lunasin, we have a way of determining if lunasin is bioactive by measuring its ability to inhibit that H3 lysine 14 acetylation, that epigenetic biomarker associated with chronic inflammation, chronic disease, and cancer formation. So we are assuring each and every production lot that comes out of the manufacturing facility, we actually test it and we dose it based on its ability to inhibit H3 lysine 14 acetylation and per milligram. So we're dosing it based on its ability to inhibit that epigenetic biomarker. And nobody else, no product out there has that bioassay. So even if they say it contains 99% lunasin, it actually is going to be ineffective because it is going to be inactivated. And they don't have a way of testing it because they don't have the bioassay. Well, people can do a bioassay. When we did this, 12, 13 years ago, we have to do bioassay that takes 6 months. Or not what, 6 to 8 weeks at the earliest to determine bioactivity. But now with our bioassay, I can do it in half a day. So I can do high throughput screening, and nobody else has that. So the product that we're developing is based on a technology that nobody else has. So if you buy a lunasin from another company, it's not going to be the same as what we have. We are assuring each and every dose of Lunarich X or the lunasin found in the core nutrition will at least have 5 milligrams of bioactive lunasin in it. And we're basing it off on its ability to inhibit the epigenetic biomarker H3 lysine 14, which is now identified to be the key epigenetic biomarker that needs to be inhibited by 3 other institutions worldwide, independently. I didn't do those research. They did it. It's just been validated. So nobody else has that, okay? So don't just buy it from any other sources because it's really not going to help you.
Well, and I know being on the inside and part of the research team here is that you're continually working to improve
yes.
that bioavailability. And, we're
yes,
not going to go too far down that road, but you
well,
are always,
you're always, because that's what I'm
no, we're not.
about.
We're already at 45 minutes. So, but,
oh, really?
but
okay.
yeah, you've had a lot to say
good.
today, and it's been very enlightening. But you didn't answer the question. I know that maybe there are some things that you talked about. That folks don't understand, but what they do want to know is what are you doing? What are you doing to protect yourself and to keep your family healthy?
Yeah. So again, the basic nutrition is very important. And when I say basic nutrition, eating your vegetables, your fruits, the protein source. We want to emphasize more on the plant-based protein sources, and of course, personally, I supplement with. I take 2 scoops of Now, the basic core nutrition Now, And at night, I take 4 capsules of Lunary Shacks before I go to bed at night. So that's my basic. And of course, exercising, at least 30 minutes of exercise every day, because as you know, there's also a lot of studies done on exercise and epigenetic changes. In fact, exercising can actually reduce the epigenetic age as well. So that means it can also optimize your epigenome. So, and sleeping at least 7 to 8 hours a night can also have an effect on delaying epigenetic aging and helping your epigenome be healthy enough so that when you get challenged by all these environmental stresses, these viral infections and stuff like that, your immune system and your body is strong enough to fight it. And all the necessary nutrients that your body needs to function properly is there. So that's all I can say. There are, of course, healthy lifestyle, no smoking and all this. Smoking is actually quite, gosh, it damages the epigenome. Not just, you see, it damages the lung, but it's actually very damaging to the body as far as the epigenome is concerned. That's why most of the smokers, you see, they look older. And it's because it really causes the systemic damage to the body. So not just the lungs. So.
Well, I second everything you just said as far as the choices that we're making around our house. I know one question that we did get a lot of, and I just want to address it is, people commonly want to know how much of a specific Relive product do I need to take, and or how much Lunacin or how much E. And of course, we just want you, start with the label, start with the directions on the label. I'm back.
Oh, yeah.
We navigated that little snafu. I think that's the system's way of saying shut it down. But
okay, all right.
I want to say thank you to you for all amazing information, the work that you're doing. Hopefully, we want to encourage you to stay safe out there on the West Coast. But I want to tell everybody we're going to make this interview available by a podcast, so you can check out Relive's YouTube page, and you'll catch the audio version of that. But we encourage you to follow the CDC guidelines for personal hygiene and personal protection, as well as those social interactions. Pay attention to your local health authorities and those authorities who are giving us direction. Let's do what we can to flatten that curve. If you're looking to reach out and help others, there's never been a more important time to be an independent Relive distributor. So there are so many online and virtual tools that you can use this podcast for sharing valid quality health information with those that you care about. But also be sure and check out Relive's Director of Marketing, Erin Cook, has a blog post and a Facebook Live on wellness and working remotely. She did a fantastic job on identifying how, for those of us working from home or will be working from home, the benefits of that and how it's easier than ever with today's technology to do that. So the other thing I need to remind everybody is, this broadcast is not a substitute for informed medical advice. Likewise, Relive products are not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. So always check with your physician before you change your diet, begin an exercise program, or start taking supplements. So we have so much great information here, but just use it appropriately. So, and if you want any more information on the Relive products, be sure and just go to relive.com, click on the products tab, and you can select core nutrition, targeted solutions, Fit3 program, get all your information right there. And that's also where you can find those Fit3 workouts, the Fit3 nutrition guide that's going to help you make better choices. So we want to thank you all for hanging in there, for being patient with our technological challenges. I guarantee that as so many people are utilizing these platforms, we're going to have more and more issues like that going forward. So no worries, we're going to do the best we can. But once again, thank you, Dr. Galvez, for being with us. And we want everybody to wash your hands.
It's a pleasure always. Thank you very much.
Wash your hands and stay safe.
Okay, you too, guys.
Okay.
All right, bye.